and it's in complete innocence. And we don't think about anything about the struggle with money because we look out into the world and we see our friends, our family. We look into our past and our parents, they might have struggled with money. Our siblings might be struggling with money. And it becomes really rare to find someone that isn't. So we just accept it. Oh yeah, this is just how it is. And the best news there is it's not just how it is. We can shift, we can change, we can create new habits. We can completely change our relationship with money internally. So our internal being with money shifts to a place where the external can't help but make it.
Today's guest is my dear friend, Angie Scott. Angie is an experienced entrepreneur and coach with over 10 years of background working with and specializing in wealth creation and business growth. With a proven track record of helping clients from diverse backgrounds increase their income and achieve a financial freedom. Angie began her career as a sports coach 35 years ago and expanded into life coaching about 20 years ago. A lifelong learner, she takes every opportunity to read, learn, and build connections. Angie is passionate about meeting new people and reconnecting with old friends. She's joining us to share insights from her journey as a coach and business owner, as well as sharing the release of her new book, which follows her journey through the AJC world leading coaching career, school, and business development. Welcome, Angie.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm so excited for our conversation. So, what is one of the most courageous things that you have done?
Do you know what? It's such a great question because for me, if you think about courage, you think of all these heroic feats and jumping off high platforms by your ankle and things like that. And it's not anything like that for me. For me, the most courageous things anybody can ever do is go anyway, regardless of what they're feeling in a situation. And I really believe that when we do something that can look really, really heroic and brave to someone else, and we've
Mm.
done it so many times, that in that moment we're not really being brave. We're not being courageous. I remember when I used to be able to scale up a 40-foot rope in my gym with no mats below me, and people used to say,
Mhm.
"Oh wow, you're so brave. I could never do that." And to me it wasn't brave because I had complete faith in my ability to do it. And for me, we're courageous when we push ourselves to a point where we're really fearful, when we really feel, I can't do this. This is too hard. I'm scared. And we go anyway because we know that going anyway is going to really shift us onto something new. So for me, I would say the answer to that question is when I took on the business of the hotel, because I was really scared. I didn't know
Mm.
how it was going to play out. We sunk a lot of money into the hotel at the time during COVID. And the last few managers, as I'd done a bit of research, actually every manager since the 1980s had failed with the business.
Wow.
And here was me going in absolutely green to the hotel industry, into a baptism of fire, sinking all of our investment money in and not knowing if I could do this and going anyway. That's what initially comes to mind. And the other thing that comes to mind is is I lost my partner last year suddenly due to a heart attack.
Mm.
And something that I would have never done in the past when I lost someone close was let anyone in. I would lock
Mhm.
myself away, I would shut myself down, I would withdraw from the world. And when I lost Matt, I did the complete opposite because I began my journey into the three principles, into the Being movement with Steve Hardison. And I opened my arms and heart to anyone that would be there. And that to me felt really out of my comfort zone. And yet I knew on some level that it would make me stronger than shutting myself away. Those things are real courage to me, not heroic feats, but stepping through the fear that we have day to day anyway, whether it's a job interview, whether it's a conversation, whether it's reaching out to someone that feels way, way ahead of us. Those are the times I feel we're really courageous, when we go anyway.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And absolutely, my heart goes to you, especially thinking of Matt. And yes, your journey has been one of definitely a courageous one. I mean, the hotel industry, let's start with that. I mean, going in absolutely green and coming out the other end because you're thriving with your business, and that's really brilliant. And then, like you said, instead of closing up, you've opened up. Courage on any scale. For some people, like you said, jumping out of an aeroplane is one thing. For some people, the other end of the scale is just waking up every morning. So I can absolutely understand that. We're all on a different level of that scale, and it's important. So thank you for sharing that, Angie. So, Angie, what took you on your journey of specializing in wealth creation and business growth? Is this from your experience, or is this something that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a twofold answer there. And one was I went with what was occurring, what was showing up in front of me. And I remember it was New Year's Day in on 2012. And I always get this feeling around New Year's Day of new beginnings.
Yeah.
I think possibly maybe that had come from my childhood where, New Year's Eve, that was a big deal. First thing in the
Mm.
morning, we let the new year in, you let in new hope, you were excited for what was coming. And at this point, I was a single parent. I was raising my youngest child on my own. My relationship had just broken down. And I remember writing on my blog on New Year's Day on 2012, if I can create the life I want to create, which was my own businesses, being able to bring people with me to create the teams, to create an environment that I could give my children everything I wanted to give them rather than having to pull the sofa apart some days because I needed a pint of milk, which is kind of where I was at that time.
Mm.
And I knew for sure at that point, if it was possible to change everything, one, I was going to find out, and two, if I did it, anyone could do it. And I never, until that moment, felt such a feeling of certainty on those two things. So I kind of launched into this determined project of finding everything I could find out about
Mm.
how to create businesses, how to shift your mindset. I'd been working with, at that point, I was very familiar with three principles already,
Mm-hmm.
but decided, okay, I understand it. I've used it to shift slightly what's possible. And realizing that change is a process.
Mm-hmm.
And this had kind of led me along this journey where things began to show up that I wouldn't have predicted. So if you'd have told me on that day, oh, in 10 years' time, you're going to be running a hotel in Wales, I probably wouldn't have believed you. I was living in South England. I had no experience whatsoever. And this was a progression. So I began to take my sports coaching a bit more seriously. I went out and I qualified as a CrossFit coach and an Olympic lifting coach,
Mhm.
and began to take that side of things a lot more seriously. And I initially set up a company as an instructor. So that was my first step into setting up my own business. And then I saw an opportunity. I'm sure it was because I was already in this mindset. Everything I'd been
Mhm.
reading and learning, because it was really close to the surface, that I saw an opportunity with one of the properties. That by that time I was in a relationship with Matt, and we had this property that we were using to escape the world at the weekends. And I phoned him up one day, and I didn't expect a yes. I said, can I turn the cottage into a business?" And this was before Airbnb was really prolific.
Mhm.
"Can I turn it into a holiday business?" He said, "Yeah, why not?" He said, "If you do it," he said, I'll eat my hat. I don't think you can do it, but go ahead."
Wow.
And every week he would see me making progress, because I renovated the place myself to build. I created this business online with the first cottage. So I set this deadline that seemed absolutely impossible, and I had someone booked in on this date. They were coming. It was something like beginning of the school holidays, so maybe the
Mm.
18th of July. And I knew I had all these people coming in 2 weeks' time, and the house was still a building site, and I still had all
Gosh.
these jobs done, and I'm working on this tight budget, and the budget
Mm.
is that I couldn't afford to get any contractors in. I had to go and do it myself. So I'm taking photographs of the property to put on the Airbnb site at this time. And I'm moving stuff around the house to get it all behind me so that I can take the photograph in front of me. And
Wow.
it didn't look like chaos, because the house isn't even close to ready. And knowing that when we set a deadline that we can't go back on,
Mm.
that's when we move things. That's when we keep accountability. When we're really committed and failure isn't an option. I don't know about you, Anita, but those are the times when I've pulled off miracles.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I
So that
hope
was the
the hat,
beginning.
absolutely. And I hope the hat tasted lovely for Matt.
Yeah, he for a long time he would say, "I can't believe you've done it. I can't believe you've done it. I can't. I didn't think you would. I didn't know it was possible."
Wow.
And what happened was we made so much money from
Mhm.
the Airbnb business that we were able to invest the money into the down payment on the Queens, on the hotel
Wow.
that I now run. So that was the trip in, and I didn't want to take it on. So there's another part of the story for you. Is we were sat across the road in a cafe, and he pointed out the window, and there was this big to let sign on the side of the hotel, and he said, "I want that." And I was like, "No, absolutely not. We're not doing this." At
Mm.
this point, he was traveling over to England to drive trains during the week. He'd be away for up to 6, 7 days at a time.
Mm.
And we kind of had this big conversation where I said, "I'll be working 18-hour days. I'll be working seven days a week. Absolutely not doing it under any circumstance." So we got the hotel, and
Absolutely not doing
and
it.
and I worked 18-hour days and 7 days a week for probably the best part of a year, until we pulled the team together and we come out of COVID, and things began to just slot into place a little bit more.
That's just beautiful. And that's commitment, isn't it? Wow. So I have attended your first wealth creation course and I loved it. And I got a lot from that. And it is possible. But you tell me more about what is involved and what it entails and how can people join if they want to.
Yeah, do you know what? To give a little bit more context, I'd love to tell you how
Mm.
that came about, if that's okay.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it was I was attending AJC, Ankush Jain's amazing coaching career school, in year one, we had a book on the book list called Overcoming Underearning by Barbara Stanley. Great book. And as I began to read through the book, I had this realization of most of this doesn't apply to me. I don't have the money kind of hang-ups and difficulties. I know how to create money. I know how to create business. I'm very good at getting a return on investment. Oh, this is really interesting. And I started to share this with some of my colleagues in the school, and they were really curious. Well, what does that look like? Because it's really relatable to me. I get all these hang-ups with money. How do you not have them? And it's very much it's very much knowledge about how to use money and the clearing of the blocks that we often have inside us. So you were on the group very early, Anita, and we've kind of developed, and I think it was great in those early days, and it's a lot
Yeah,
better now
brilliant.
because we've
I
learned
bet.
over the year, what the things are that really, really move the needle within the group setting. And what we found, because I've worked with a lot of people now, I've probably worked, I think I worked out the other day, I was around 64 people I've worked with now on wealth creation. And all of them that have applied it have had a shift around money. So there's the external knowledge of what money is, what money isn't, how we use it, how we can invest it, how we get ourselves out of the pitfalls with money. And there's the combination of what holds us back inside and the trapping of our inner wealth. And when we release that inner trap, and it can be, I'm not good enough. It can be, I'm not wanted. I don't fit in. I mess everything up. And these stories are so universal. And I had a version as well. My version wasn't, I can't make money. My version was, I don't deserve money. So I was making money for other people. I was making it for the businesses. I was making it for my partner, but I wasn't doing it for myself. That was my version that I needed to get past. So as we worked together in this group, which was a real experiment in the beginning of, what can shift people around money creation, we began to realize that there really is something here. There's something really powerful. There's something that people don't always see. And I think it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad that he either wrote in his book or it was something to do with the research. I'm not sure which, I can't remember. But said something along the lines that data shows that 97% of people know how to spend money and they know how to borrow money. And only 3% of the population know how to invest money and multiply money easily.
Wow.
And it's not our fault because we're not taught in schools. We're not taught by our families because our families don't know what to teach us. Our friends don't know either, unless we're lucky enough to be friends with the 3%. And then often, even if we are, do we take the opportunity to go and have the conversation with them and say, what do you know that I don't know? Tell me, teach me.
Yes.
And it's in complete innocence. And we don't think about anything about the struggle with money because we look out into the world and we see our friends, our family. We look into our past and our parents. They might have struggled with money. Our siblings might be struggling with money. And it becomes really rare to find someone that isn't. So we just accept it. Oh, yeah, this is just how it is. And the best news there is it's not just how it is. We can shift, we can change, we can create new habits. We can completely change our relationship with money internally. So our internal being with money shifts to a place where the external can't help but make it.
Mm. Beautiful, absolutely. And it is knowing what to do, because some people just don't know what to do. I mean, that's why I came on it, and I shall be attending another one for sure. Because, like you say, the more knowledge I've got on how to create it, the better I'll be at creating it. So, yes. And it's having that absolute trust in, okay, I'm going to go with the process, and allowing your mind and what you're thinking, let it all go. That's the part. This is coming with an open mind and learning new things and applying them. Absolutely. When is your next course? Have you booked them? Are they fully booked already?
So the next one's beginning on the 15th September. It's running for 6 weeks. And this one is a foundation
Mm-hmm.
for people that haven't done a group with me before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the real fundamentals. And
Mm-hmm.
then the next one is going to be really exciting, because the next one is going to be for people who have been through the basics of the tracking systems and the investment systems that we put into place, and understanding the process of debt clearance. And this one, the next one, will be how we take this deeper when we really understand that part of it, when we understand the basics, how we can I just share quickly something that I share on the groups that I wasn't doing when you attended, that I think could be really useful?
Absolutely.
So what we talk about is everyone's got a wealth thermostat. So if you imagine a heating thermostat on a wall, but this one's got numbers on it. This one might have, someone's thermostat might be turned to 0, which means every time they get money into their bank account, it will drop back to 0. Some people's is below 0. I'm sure that's none of your listeners, Anita. I'm sure none of them are in that below. However,
Absolutely.
there are people who, they're in their overdraft all the time. They've got debt. If they were actually to go through their finances, they realize, actually, my money is below 0. And they stay in that zone. And
Mm-hmm.
there are other people. A really good example of that is people that we see, famous people. Steve Jobs has been there,
Mm-hmm.
where they've got a very high thermostat. And if something happens in their life, to drop that thermostat, they will very quickly come back up.
Mm-hmm.
So Steve Jobs is a great example of that. So he left Apple, I think it was around 1986, which had virtually wiped him to nothing. And he became involved in this startup company. And he bought this company. It was very small, and he grew it a little bit. And do you know what that company became? It became Pixar. And he sold that on for profit and rejoined Apple. So very quickly, we rise our wealth thermostat up to that point. And it works the other way as well. So if you hear about
Mm-hmm.
lottery winners, they've got a low wealth thermostat and they might have a big win. They very quickly lose all that money and come back to the point of their thermostat. So what we now do in the later stages of the wealth creation is we work very specifically to raise the thermostat, because when we raise the thermostat, everything naturally changes. It wouldn't matter if you went out and lost every penny tomorrow. You could
Mm-hmm.
come back up to that point of your thermostat incredibly quickly within a few months. And you can look out into the world and see so many stories where that's true.
Wow. That's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Because you wouldn't even think of something like that, a thermostat for your money. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think everyone can relate to it as well, of how
Mm.
we've lost our, we might have lost our jobs in the past, but we quickly come up back up to that point where, we're internally comfortable. It might be we have 2,000 in our bank. It might be that we have 100,000, but we always come back to that reset point.
That's really brilliant. And yes, I need more of that in my life. I shall be joining. So
Yeah,
you
me
brief
too. And the more I stay immersed in it, the higher
Yes,
my thermostat is going.
definitely. Absolutely. It's investing in ourselves for our personal development, our coaching, everything. It's understanding what we can do to help ourselves as well. Absolutely. You mentioned AJC. So share about your journey through the AJC and what is the AJC? Obviously, I know what it is, but for my listeners, the world leading coaching career school and business development. Tell me more about that, please, Angie.
Yeah, I'd love to share a really specific story that highlights what AJC is for me.
Hmm.
So, AJC is a school for coaches, initially a school for coaches who want to make more money in their coaching practice. And it still is that, as well as being more than that now.
Hmm.
Something that really highlights what the AJC is for me is that I went back into year 2, and year 1 was phenomenal. I knew it would be incredible, and it blew my expectations out of the water. And on the first day of the second year, within the first 20 minutes of being in the room, Ankush, who runs the AJC, just a little bit more background before I carry on with the story, I just realized a little bit more context is going to be really useful here. So I first come across Ankush a couple of years ago. When I wanted to build a coaching practice, I looked out into the world who was already being the coach I wanted to be. And I saw that this guy called Ankush, and he was already out in the world. He was a successful coach. He was at full practice, and he was ethical. If Ankush coaches 20 to 30 people in a year, he serves 500, 600, 700, even more people per year.
Hmm.
And that's what drew me to him. He was already being who I wanted to be. So he stood at the front of the room at the beginning of year 2, and he said, and I'm paraphrasing, he didn't see a room full of coaches who were trying to build a coaching practice. He saw a room full of world leaders, and spoke about how the coaching industry has the power to raise the consciousness of the planet. And that's because every single person we work with, when we were a really competent coach, brings their inner wealth to the outside. We all have more potential inside us than we're bringing to the world. It's a lifelong journey. And that is what AJC is to me.
Hmm.
It's a collective mission to raise us all to our potential of who we can be in the world, that goes beyond who we are being in the world. Because there's always more to be, more to see, more to come.
Absolutely. That's so beautiful. And I absolutely agree with what you're saying. And I've spoke to Ankush a few times, and absolutely he does serve not just the people he's coaching, he serves everyone. The amount of times I've seen things he's written just on social media, it's had an impact, direct impact on me. So absolutely, absolutely wonderful. Tell me more about your coaching business and how you work with and who you work with, please, Angie.
So I mainly work with 2 groups. I do work with coaches who are building a business, but I mainly don't do that. So the main thing I do is I work with anyone that's on a path to wealth creation, that wants to create more money,
Hmm.
that wants to create more abundance and more wealth in their life. And I work with business owners, someone who's already got a business or wants to begin a business, to help them create a business that's sustainable, that's profitable, and that goes beyond what their competitors are doing. From the point of view of, I don't care what my competition's doing. All I ever need to worry about is my customers. And when I'm serving my customers so deeply that it's to the maximum ability of my company, what everybody else is doing is irrelevant. I don't need to worry. I don't ever need to worry about where my next customer's coming from because I know I'm serving so deeply, they'll be there anyway. I know that my staff work so well together as a team that they take the companies to the next level. It's always the teams that are the strongest part of any company. And that's what I work with businesses with. The biggest part of my work is with individuals with wealth creation.
It's absolutely fantastic. Absolutely. And I am excited about your upcoming book. Please tell me more about that, Angie.
Yeah, do you know what, Anita? I'm really, really excited about this. So
Yes.
this was my journey through AJC Coaching Career School in year 1 and 2, and Anchor should have very generously said, I believe it was at the end of year 1 that he gave all of us permission to share our notes and write a book from the notes. And I took this really seriously. So I thought, how can I turn this into something really valuable for anyone that wanted to pick this up and get the value from my notes? And actually, from my scribblings in a book, just bullets and scribblings, turning that into something that actually flowed, oh, that was a lot harder than I expected. And I couldn't really see a way to integrate it into a book that would be interesting, would be engaging, until I saw that actually what's valuable here is how I implemented the teachings from AJC and used them in my own life to create more wealth, more success, more happiness, more release from anxiety, a more successful coaching business. So really real, tangible stories about how we move those ideas out of the classroom and into the real world.
Wow. Yeah.
So that was how I wrote my book. And I've been getting great feedback. So I've sent a sample copy out, and Ankush has sent sample copies out. It's just very much about Ankush as well. As a lot of the ideas in the book are Ankush's teachings, and he's very generously been supporting me to bring the best of the book out in a way that's going to serve the reader. It's going to serve the coaching industry.
Wow.
So yeah, really excited and getting great feedback from the sample version that we sent out as well. So the book is hopefully going to be with us by spring next year. Had a call with the editor this week, which is really exciting. So should be in everyone's hands by March.
I can't wait. Cannot wait to get my copy. Yes, and thank you for sending the sample to me as well. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I can assure you I will be. Wow. Absolutely fantastic. So, Angie, this is a big question. What is one of the most important lessons you have learnt over your life so far? If you can possibly put it into one, you probably have learnt so many.
What comes up, and I'm going to go to a book for this, is the lessons in The Go-Giver by Bob Burg. When we're willing to give without holding back, and when we're willing to receive without holding back, our life becomes richer with friendship, with connections, with family, and dropping the misunderstandings that I had over who I needed to just be, allow, give, receive in a way that was authentic rather than judgmental and fearful has shifted me probably more than anything.
Absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. Yes. We can put the link in the show notes if anybody would like to get that book and read it as well. Absolutely. Fantastic. So, where can the listeners find you online? I know your book will be out in March, and I'm sure we can get the link nearer that time. What's your website, Angie?
Although I do have a website, Anita, which is angiscott.co.uk, I don't prolifically use it. And the reason being is I really took to heart Steve Chandler and Rich Litvin said in The Prosperous Coach that the website is never going to be the way that as coaches that we really impact people. So it's kind of sat there from a day where I thought it was important. How I really love to connect with people is through Facebook, and you can find me on there. And I love the platform of Facebook because it really brings people together. It creates communities. And I've met so many people through the Ultimate Coach Facebook group set up by Eric Lofholm. If anyone that's listening doesn't know about the Ultimate Coach and Steve Hardison, I strongly recommend you check it out because it's been so impactful on my journey. And I've met so many incredible people, including yourself, Anita, through the Ultimate Coach platform.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. And I think it's quite important to have said that, because some people stop themselves. They don't go on because they're so worried about getting the website ready. The website's got to be good, this and that. And it really doesn't have that much of an impact on the actual work you're doing, creating the business. So, yeah, I think that's a beautiful point to be made. Thank you for sharing that, Angie.
You're welcome. Thank you. The only other thing I'd add, Anita, is if anything resonates with anyone that's listening, don't be scared to reach out to me for a conversation. As I kind of pointed to earlier, I come from a place where I was behind anyone that's listening to this today, and what I've created and what I'm still creating, there's people who are ahead of me and there's people who are yet to do some of the things that I've done, and this is a journey through. And don't be scared to reach out. I'd love a conversation if you'd like a conversation. I aim to follow the example of my coach and serve as many people as I get the ability and privilege to be with, serve, speak to, connect with.
Well, thank you for that, Angie. And the link will be in the show notes. So please do connect with Angie, have a conversation, and I'm sure you'll get absolutely some brilliant wisdom insights from it. Thank you for sharing your courageous journey and your deep, insightful wisdom and knowledge with us today. And by doing so, I know you have helped so many others. I'd really like to acknowledge you for that, Angie Scott. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anita. And my thanks and acknowledgement for you for giving me the opportunity and for giving so many people a platform to be heard and share their story. It's important and so valuable. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So we are all about create the courage to be fearless. What is your definition of courage?
My definition of courage is to be commitment even when whatever this is, whatever the thing that feels really big today, to stop you stepping into what you know is going to be your shift. That's my definition of courage. To step in even when it's hard, because that's what really moves the needle. That's what really takes us forward, and that's what really creates growth and movement and change and success and all things incredible.